Greenland, 1000 AD. A land of ice, isolation, and unforgiving cold. This is where the Vikings chose to build their future. But what started as a dream of new lands and fresh opportunities would soon become a fight for survival against nature's cruelest season. Just months earlier, 3 longships had arrived from Iceland, carrying families desperate for farmland and a chance at prosperity. Their leader had heard tales of Greenland's green valleys and rich hunting grounds. The name itself promised fertility. 73 souls came ashore that summer day, bringing everything they owned: livestock, tools, seeds, and hope. They worked tirelessly through the brief Arctic summer, cutting turf and building their homes into the earth for insulation. By late summer, the settlement was complete. 8 longhouses, a communal hall, and storage pits for the winter ahead. They preserved every fish they caught, knowing winter would be long and dark. Seal meat was salted and stored in barrels. Each family rationed their supplies carefully. But by early autumn, the weather turned. The skies darkened weeks earlier than expected. Hunting parties returned with meager catches. The seals had already migrated south, far earlier than normal. When they checked their winter stores, the reality became clear. They had barely half of what they needed. Their livestock was dangerously small, just 15 sheep and 6 goats to feed 70 people through an Arctic winter. The land around them was already turning brown and lifeless, and they were utterly alone. Their leader knew what was coming. He had survived harsh winters in Iceland, but nothing like what Greenland was about to unleash. In mid-October, the first snow began. Within hours, it became a blizzard. For 3 days and nights, snow fell without stopping. 2 feet became 4. The settlement was being buried alive. Just reaching the storage pits became a battle. Every door was blocked by massive drifts. They dug paths between buildings, but the snow filled them in as fast as they could shovel. It was a fight they couldn't win. The settlement disappeared into an endless white wasteland. They were trapped. Inside the longhouses, families burned through their peat reserves trying to stay warm. But fuel, like food, was running dangerously low. By late November, the food barrels were nearly empty. What should have lasted until spring was almost gone. The faces of starvation began to appear: hollow cheeks, sunken eyes, and the slow, deliberate movements of the starving. A single dried fish was divided among 6 people. Each portion barely filled a hand. The children suffered most. Too young to understand why they were hungry, too weak to cry for long. Starvation steals strength before it takes life. Simple tasks became impossible challenges. They dug through 6 feet of snow trying to reach the underground storage pits, hoping they'd missed something, anything. But the ground was frozen solid. There was nothing left to find. They scraped the insides of empty barrels, collecting fragments of dried fish that clung to the wood. Seaweed boiled in water became soup, thin, tasteless, but it kept them alive one more day. In desperation, they boiled their leather boots and belts. The softened hide provided something to chew, if not nourishment. The livestock began to die. First from cold, then from starvation. Each dead animal was a meal, but also a loss of future survival. They butchered what died, dragging frozen carcasses through the snow with what little strength remained. But a starved sheep has almost no meat. What should have fed 10 people barely fed 3. They watched their remaining animals collapse, too weak themselves to offer help or comfort. By December, only 2 longhouses still showed signs of life. The others had let their fires go out to save fuel. Then came the worst blizzard yet. Wind so violent, it tore turf from roofs. Cold so intense that exposed skin froze in seconds. The entire settlement crowded into the largest longhouse, sharing body heat as their last defense against the cold. Children slept pressed against their parents, dreaming perhaps of warmer days and full bellies. That night, the first died. An elder named Thorvald, who'd survived 60 winters in Iceland, but not this one in Greenland. There were no words, no strength for proper mourning. They simply covered him and waited for dawn. But their leader refused to surrender. At first light, he made a decision that would determine if any of them survived. The blizzard had finally passed. Weak sunlight broke through the clouds for the first time in days. 5 men, including the leader, set out for the frozen fjord. Each step through the deep snow was agony, but stopping meant death. They were small figures in an immense frozen wilderness, searching for the one thing that could save them: fish beneath the ice. For an hour, they chopped through ice 2 feet thick, taking turns when exhaustion forced them to stop. When they finally broke through, everything depended on what lived in the dark water below. The first fish was small, barely a pound. But to these starving men, it was salvation. They stayed at that hole until sunset, catching 8 fish in total, more than they'd eaten in the past week combined. The journey back nearly killed them. 1 man collapsed in the snow, and it took the strength of all 4 others to get him home. But when they stumbled through the door with those fish, they brought something more valuable than food. They brought hope. Every person received a piece of raw fish. Some cooked theirs briefly. Others couldn't wait. It was the first real food they'd tasted in days, and it gave them the strength to survive one more night. Over the following weeks, the men returned to the ice every day the weather allowed. Each fishing trip brought back just enough to keep everyone alive. It was grueling, exhausting work, but it was working. As winter slowly released its grip, the snow began to melt. Patches of brown earth appeared. The first migrating birds returned. Seals appeared on distant ice floes. The settlement had survived, but at a terrible cost. 13 graves marked the snow when spring finally arrived. 13 people who'd crossed an ocean for a new life, only to fall to winter's cruelty. Among them were 5 children, 3 elders, and 5 adults in their prime. The survivors emerged from that winter changed, thinner, harder, more cautious. They spent the entire next summer preparing for winter, building larger storage pits, preserving twice as much food, learning which plants could be dried and stored, which hunting grounds stayed accessible in deep snow. The Vikings would remain in Greenland for nearly 500 years, adapting to one of Earth's harshest environments. They learned to survive winters that would have destroyed most settlements. They developed techniques for hunting seals through ice, for preserving food in permafrost, for building homes that could withstand Arctic storms. But those who survived that first winter never forgot how close they'd come to complete annihilation. 13 graves stood as a permanent reminder. In Greenland, winter doesn't just test you, it tries to kill you. And only the prepared, the determined, and the incredibly lucky survive. This was the starving winter of 1000 AD. The winter that almost ended the Viking settlement of Greenland before it began.